Chris Wallace with WG Financial Group has been helping families here in the Huntsville area plan for a successful retirement. Chris strives to understand all of your financial needs to help guide you on the path to your retirement goals, creating income in retirement, maximizing your savings, and minimizing taxes. Chris has the strategies you need to help you sustain a successful retirement. Welcome to the Rocket City Retirement Show with Chris Wallace.
Welcome to this special edition of the Rocket City Retirement Show, where today is really all about you. On our show today, we're answering all of your questions about retirement. I'm here with Chris Wallace, Certified Financial Planner with WG Financial Group. And Chris gets these questions every week, no matter where he is, about all things retirement. So we are going to take some time to get to know you, our viewers, and answer your questions. What is on your mind? So, Chris, great to be here with you again.
Great to be here with you.
All right. So let's go ahead and dig into our Rocket City Retirement Mailbag. Our very first question is from Megan in Huntsville. She says, I am 59 years old and I'm a small business owner. I've owned my own business for the past 5 years, and the way business is holding up, I plan on retiring in another 5 years. What should I consider when it comes to sustaining my lifestyle in retirement?
That's a really good question here. So as a small business owner myself, I think it's important first just to recognize, where you are as far as what you're planning to do, I guess, when you get into retirement. Are you still planning to own the business? And if you are you going to work in just a lesser capacity and just kind of maybe cut back the days, number of days that you're working? So I think that's important. I think today is really understanding where you are in lifestyle and understanding, are you going to want to do the exact same type of lifestyle in retirement? I can tell you that most of the people that we work with want to continue the same level of lifestyle. So one of the things I would make sure of is make sure that you're saving in the appropriate retirement plan. I see with small business owners a tendency to be saving in the wrong types of retirement plans. So that is one area that I've seen a lot of mistakes in. I've also seen issues with small business owners trying to itemize and deduct away all of their taxes. And in doing that, they're not showing enough income, and therefore they're not paying enough into Social Security like they should be, especially as close as she's talking about being to retirement. So those are just some of the things that I would take a look at. I'd recommend sitting down with a financial professional, make sure you've got a good estate attorney and a CPA, kind of that dream team as we like to call it, especially as a small business owner. You're going to want to make sure you have those professionals putting together plans and, putting plans in place to really protect you.
Right. And with her being, 5 years away from retirement, the time is now really to make sure that she's got everything lined up.
The time was 5 years ago, but
right.
The time is definitely now for sure. For sure.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Next question comes from Bill in Athens. And he says, as prices are on the rise, I'm concerned I don't have enough saved to last me throughout retirement. How do I know if I've saved enough?
Yeah, this is the reality that we're all facing, right? I mean, we've seen inflation kind of take off. It's kind of, come down a little bit, and it's kind of become a little bit stagnant and sticky. But the problem with inflation, and we've talked about this before, is not necessarily just the inflation itself. It's the permanent elevation in price. So for those retirees that are retiring today, congratulations, I guess. Your retirement's going to be more expensive than you thought, because now we've got permanent elevation in price, which is creating his question. Do I have enough now? And I'm sure that he's not the only one out there watching the show today that are sitting there saying, well, good grief, with hamburgers now costing $12 per burger every time we go out to eat, can I afford to go out to eat? And, all of us, and, I know you have it too. I have a daughter who, the Amazon factor, right? I mean, it's a real thing,
wow.
And how much are we spending on Amazon? We have to look at all of that and determine, do we have enough money? And the way to do that is to sit down with someone and have them look at your plan from a holistic standpoint. I think that people tend to think about just their expenses only. They don't think about the health care. They don't think about the tax side of things. They don't think about the legacy side of things. So I think sitting down with someone like our firm that does holistic planning can really give insight into letting you know if you have enough saved or not.
Right. And I bet you that's the question you get all the time. Have I saved enough?
All the time, especially as of late because of the elevation in price.
Right. Okay. Another question we have is from Sarah and Tony. And she says, I watch your TV show often, but I've never really understood exactly what your firm does. I was wondering if you could explain all of your services and how you help people in retirement. You kind of just touched on it right there. You are a holistic firm.
We do. This is a great question. And I do, if I'm being honest and I'm grading myself, I do a really poor job at explaining what we do. So this is a great question. I'm actually glad that she asked this question. So we are a holistic financial planning firm. So in our firm, what we tend to look at when we're meeting with a family is I have a process that I go by that's trademarked. It's called the RITE retirement process. It's RITE. And the first thing we look at is retirement income, because as we all know, there is no retirement without income. If you cannot generate a sustainable, guaranteed source of income or income streams, you're not going to be able to retire, because that's what your job is doing right now. It's providing that guaranteed income stream. So identifying, looking at your retirement income, determining how you're going to pull money out of which accounts and how to go about doing that, that's all part of the R in the process. And then we get into the investments. Now, most people think, well, I'm getting near retirement. I can't be invested in the stock market. I must, put it all in cash or bonds or whatever. That's not always the case. But what we do under the I in the process is really take a look at the investments. We take a look at your risk. Take a look at your fees that you're paying with your advisor. We find that most people are overpaying, and from what we see in the families that have come in to sit down with us, that the fee structure is probably a little high. We're also looking at the internal fees on the mutual funds and the ETFs that they have, and making sure that they're not overpaying in those areas as well. And then I would tell you that when you start looking at retirement, you can't just go off rules of thumb. So again, a lot of people would say, oh, you should be mostly bonds when you're in retirement. That's not really the case. It really matters. What really matters most is your time horizon and your goals and objectives. That should really determine how you're invested. And then we're going to take a look at your tax efficient investment planning and make sure that you're doing things as tax efficiently as possible. Of course, I'm not a CPA. We always refer out for CPA type of work, but I can look at your retirement plan and start looking at the tax efficiency. And then we also take a look at the estate and legacy side of things and how money is going to pass on to the beneficiaries. I'm not an estate attorney. I don't do legal documents, but we refer out for that type of thing. But we do look at the other aspects of legacy.
Right. There you go. Thank you so much. If you have any questions about retirement, don't hesitate to reach out to Chris and the team at W&G Financial Group. They'd love to guide you. Stay with us. Chris continues to answer your questions about retirement when we return.
You have a club for every scenario. A driver for the long holes. Wedges to get you over the hazards. And a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today, and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.
There are some things you can't avoid, but you can avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. You may think your taxes will go down in retirement, but that's not always true. In fact, sometimes your tax liability could go up. We're offering a free guide to show how you may be able to pay fewer taxes in retirement. Learn how different retirement accounts are taxed and options to help make your retirement income more tax efficient, all in easy to understand terms. Download this free tax guide now to help keep what's yours and avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. Just when you may want to forget your age, Uncle Sam says not so fast. Knowing your age is more important than ever when it comes to taking your required minimum distributions, or RMDs. Legislation just changed the age requirement, and not accounting for that could impact your retirement plan. It could be key to not overpaying on taxes in retirement. So remember, when it comes to RMDs, age is more than just a number. Before your next birthday, call today to secure a strategy for the RMD age change and your retirement.
You have a club for every scenario. A driver for the long holes. Wedges to get you over the hazards. And a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today, and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.
You're watching the Rocket City Retirement Show with Chris Wallace.
Welcome back to our special edition of the Rocket City Retirement Show. Today, it's all about you. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Chris Wallace, of WG Financial Group, and we are answering some of your very own retirement questions. Chris, you ready to get back to it?
Absolutely.
All right, here we go. This question comes from Mary in Harvest, who says, I was under the impression that investments in my accounts didn't have any fees. I'm now reading and finding out my assumption was wrong. Do all investments have fees?
That's a really, really deep question. So a lot of people, when you're working, you're investing in your 401ks and putting in your IRAs. A lot of people don't realize that they do have some element of expenses in most all investments. Not every single investment. Like, for example, if you own a stock, there's no investment expense ratio there. But if you're looking at mutual funds or ETFs, there's something called an expense ratio, and most all funds have them. So I think it's really important to be aware of that and not just assume that you're not paying any fees. We have seen, for people that have come in to sit down with us, that's one of the things that we do is we do an investment analysis that falls under the I in our process. And when looking at that, we are looking for that average expense ratio across all of your funds. And sometimes you will have 1 or 2 or 3 funds inside of your portfolio that may have a 1.2% expense ratio, which is incredibly high, and there may be a cheaper alternative out there for you. The other thing to do is to be, or the other thing to be aware of rather, is just to be aware that if there's not just the expense ratio you have to worry about. Some funds charge some funds are loaded. So they have a front end load, for example, they're commission funds, and they basically pay a commission to the broker that sells them, but it takes away from the amount of money that you have going into that fund because it peels off the front half of that in the way of what's called a sales load. So you want to be aware of that as well. And I always tend to say that the individuals that have those front-loaded funds or those sales-loaded funds, they are typically kind of sold to you and they're put in the portfolio, and then they're kind of set and kind of forget kind of a thing, which is not always a good thing. I think we've heard that we should set our investments and kind of forget about them, but that's not the case. We do need to do some rebalancing. We need to pay attention to what's going on in the economy and then look at that relative to how we're investing and make changes. Oftentimes what I find when people come in is they'll say, I'm not paying my advisor a fee. Well, that's because you paid them a commission when they put you in those funds, but you've been in those funds for 15 years. And I know the economy's changed over the last 15 years. I know, and the interest rate environment has changed, the inflationary environment has changed, but there's been no changes to the investments. So would you have been better off paying an advisor fee to work with you on the rebalancing? I don't know. That's your call, but that's kind of how we look at things at the office.
Right. Very good. Okay. Next question comes from Franklin in Gurley. And he says, my wife and I are maintaining a healthy lifestyle, but we would still like to be prepared for any emergencies. Do you have any suggestions on the best ways to save in retirement for unexpected life events?
Yeah, so this is great. I'm glad they're maintaining a healthy lifestyle because that is a part of longevity for most people. So being social, watch no tobacco usage is usually good as well. And maintaining that healthy lifestyle, diet and exercise, all of that good stuff will help you live a long time. Being prepared for an emergency. So that's important. And I think that there are 2 things at play here. We've got what I would call your regular health insurance, right? So you're getting into retirement, you're on Medicare, you've got your supplement, you're transferring that risk over to the insurance company in case you get sick. So making a good health insurance decision, I think, is really, really important. And then for like long-term care, so if you have to go into a nursing home or maybe you come down with dementia or something like that, then you need a different type of insurance for that. You need long-term care insurance. So making the decision on whether or not to purchase long-term care insurance would be a good way to really, I guess, insure yourself in case that risk does come to fruition, which it can for a lot of people.
Right. Okay. So like you guys do, just kind of prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Correct.
Our next question comes from Will in Decatur. He says, I'm approaching the age of retirement. What factors should I consider before leaving my full-time job for good?
Well, you want to make sure you can leave the full-time job. So there's a lot of factors, actually, and then we don't have enough time on the show to go through all of those. But the first thing you want to do is make sure you have enough saved. You want to make sure that when you walk away from that job and you pull that ripcord, that parachute's going to open. And I think that's the biggest fear for people is, once I jump out of this airplane and go into retirement, is my parachute going to open? Or let me say it another way. Once I turn off that faucet of income, do I have enough income coming in to sustain me until I run out of life? So he knows when he's going to retire, or at least when he wants to. He does not know when he's going to pass away. There's one person that knows that, and that's the good Lord above.
Right.
So I think building a plan to ensure that you can have money for a good 25 to 30-year time horizon is really important. And that involves sitting down with a financial professional. And as I always say, whether it's us or not, find somebody that you like to work with, that's knowledgeable about retirement planning, and that can walk beside you in this journey that you've never walked before.
Exactly. You guys do it every single day.
Every single day.
We're all going to retire one time, and we want to get it right the first time. That's why we need to lean on you for some guidance.
Correct.
Okay. Last question comes from Kaylin in New Hope, and she says, are there any best practices to minimize taxes in retirement?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There are. So let's just go over. Yeah, there's several. And there's several in the pre-retirement years too. So we'll kind of attack both sides, if you will. So I think in your pre-retirement years, I think it is important to understand where you are in the brackets today. So in other words, understanding what tax bracket, marginal tax bracket you're in, and should you be doing pre-tax? Should you be doing some in Roth? Should you be putting some in an HSA? Should you be putting some in a brokerage account? Those are all considerations that you should be thinking about in your pre-retirement years. Once you get into retirement, you know you're going to have Social Security that's taxed more efficiently as one stream of income. You're going to be pulling out of another source or sources of income. So what you want to do is make sure that you've got those tax buckets kind of lined up so that you can pull out of each one of those efficiently to really maximize your tax bracket. If you're a charitable giver, there are some very efficient ways to give to charities and churches. A lot of our clients give to charity. They give to their church. There are very, very efficient ways to be able to do that. And here again, I think it's important that maybe, and I think you said her name was Kayla, maybe she could give us a call. We are happy to walk her through some of the options on the charitable giving side. When you hit 70 and a half, you can do what's called a qualified charitable distribution. So I think that's important to take a look at. But there's all kinds of ways post-retirement for you to be able to really maximize the tax efficiency. And it's really not something that you can Google. I mean, you can Google and get ideas, but you're not going to be able to Google and figure out how to do it exactly. That involves having that team around you to really help you do that.
All right. Thank you so much again for all these insights. We want to remind you that you do not have to plan for retirement alone. Chris and the team at WG Financial Group have the resources in place. They've worked so hard and they want to help you. Stay with us. Chris will continue to answer your questions about retirement when we come back.
There are some things you can't avoid, but you can avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. You may think your taxes will go down in retirement, but that's not always true. In fact, sometimes your tax liability could go up. We're offering a free guide to show how you may be able to pay fewer taxes in retirement. Learn how different retirement accounts are taxed and options to help make your retirement income more tax efficient, all in easy to understand terms. Download this free tax guide now to help keep what's yours and avoid overpaying taxes in retirement.
You have a club for every scenario. A driver for the long holes. Wedges to get you over the hazards. And a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.
There are some things you can't avoid, but you can avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. You may think your taxes will go down in retirement, but that's not always true. In fact, sometimes your tax liability could go up. We're offering a free guide to show how you may be able to pay fewer taxes in retirement. Learn how different retirement accounts are taxed and options to help make your retirement income more tax efficient, all in easy to understand terms. Download this free tax guide now to help keep what's yours and avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. Just when you may want to forget your age, Uncle Sam says not so fast. Knowing your age is more important than ever when it comes to taking your required minimum distributions, or RMDs. Legislation just changed the age requirement, and not accounting for that could impact your retirement plan. It could be key to not overpaying on taxes in retirement. So remember, when it comes to RMDs, age is more than just a number. Before your next birthday, call today to secure a strategy for the RMD age change and your retirement.
You're watching the Rocket City Retirement Show with Chris Wallace.
Thanks for joining us on this very special edition of the Rocket City Retirement Show. We've been answering some of your retirement questions, and Chris, we're digging into our City Retirement mailbag, and we're going to pull out some of these questions again now. So we'll continue with Phil from Newmarket. And he says, I am 63 years old. I had planned to retire at the age of 64, but my job laid me off to cut back on costs for the company. I'm debating whether I should retire now or find a job until I am comfortable enough with my savings. It seems retirement is approaching earlier than I'd expected, and I don't have a solid plan. What should I do?
Yeah, this is a really good question from Phil. So first of all, I'm sorry, Phil, you lost your job. That is happening to a lot of people. It happened to my father. But what I will say there's a positive to this is you were laid off at 63 and you were planning to retire at 64. So just general assumption here that if you were planning appropriately, then you're probably okay. But I think what it would really involve is sitting down and kind of going over your specific situation and taking a look at your annual living expenses, because you've got to live a year longer on retirement funds that you didn't plan on doing. So I think that's important for Phil to take into account. And I think everybody watching the show should listen to this question. And I think they should put themselves in Phil's position and plan for your, retiring or having to retire or being forced into retirement early, because that's the way corporate America is. If there's cost savings that need to happen, labor's kind of expensive, and so they could do a layoff. So I think when you're planning for retirement, I think it's, you plan for your normal retirement, but then you plan for that what if. And we've talked about it before, like the what if retirement, as we've called it. What if I get laid off 2 or 3 years early? So it's a great question. I'm actually glad he wrote in and asked this, because it may open the eyes of other people that need to come in and actually build out a solid retirement plan so they know how they stand. Because the worst thing you want to do is get in like Phil's situation, and you get to 63 and you're like, uh-oh, I don't have a job anymore because my company decided to lay me off. Do I have enough? That becomes the big question. You want to know that. You want to know that if you can retire at 65, but you get laid off at 62, am I good? And then that way the panic doesn't kind of set in, because there's all kind of emotions that surround retirement.
And how old was your dad when he got laid off from his
He was
job?
60.
Yeah, 60.
60.
Yeah, so
Yep.
he still had several working years left. So.
Yeah, well, it ended up being a blessing, because there's always God's plan and then our plan.
Right.
So it
Yeah.
ended up being a blessing, because he
Yeah.
ended up helping my grandparents a
Oh,
lot.
wonderful.
So
Okay,
he needed
very
to be
good.
there for them. So
That's awesome.
that was part of the plan.
Yeah, it was. All right, our next question comes from Lauren in Hazel Green. And she says, I'm nervous about how much money I have in the stock market. What's the right amount for me to have invested if I'm in my early 60s?
Yeah, great question. Here we are again. All the rumors are when you get to retirement, you should have less in the stock market. And I'm not going to disagree with that in its entirety. And I know that there are people out there, well, I don't have the time horizon, for sure, which is why I say you should lengthen your time horizon. Do all you can to lengthen your time horizon in retirement. So what I mean by that is, when you retire, well, let's go back to when you were 20 or 30 and you're working, you got your income coming in, you weren't really thinking about retirement, you're putting into your 401k, you weren't thinking about what was going on with your accounts. You weren't thinking about how much stocks you had in your account at that point. Why? You didn't need the money. So I think when you get into retirement, one of the best things a family can do is create a sustainable guaranteed income foundation. And by doing that, you can almost in a sense recreate your paycheck. And by doing that, you can have a longer time horizon with your investments, meaning that if you have enough income coming in every week, every other week, every month, however you choose to generate that income in your retirement portfolio, then you don't worry about the investments. So to answer her question, there's not really a magic number. I have families that need to have 40% stock, investments, or 50. I have some families that are 60 or 70. It really depends on how much income you have coming in and when you're actually going to need those investments. So the time horizon is super critical when it comes to a retirement plan.
Okay, very good. Our next question comes from Kevin in Monrovia. And he says, I've heard you talk about annuities as an option in retirement planning. What exactly makes an annuity a good option for some people?
It's a great follow-up question, because so when we were talking about building that great, sustainable retirement income foundation, the first thing you're going to have, or most people are going to have, is going to be Social Security. and it was originally designed to replace somewhere around 40% of your income. If you're fortunate enough today to have a pension, now you've got Social Security, now you've stacked the pension on top of that, you're probably good at that point. You probably don't need to tap into the investments because you have a strong, sustained, income stream from your Social Security and your pension. But let's just say that you only have Social Security, and let's just assume, for assuming purposes, and we got to be careful assuming because you know what they say,
yeah.
right? So let's just say, for example purposes, that we have $2,000 in Social Security income coming in, but we have $4,000 in necessary living expenses. So we have a gap, and we don't have that pension like the other example that I mentioned. So in this case, it might be a good idea to look at, depending on how much you have saved for retirement, depends on how big your nest egg is, it might be worth looking at an annuity for income to almost act as a personal pension. Now, I know a lot of people saying, oh, I don't like annuities. People don't like annuities because they've heard other people don't like annuities.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Right.
There's tons of mutual funds out there that I don't like. There's
Right.
ETF, there's stocks, there's all kinds of things that I don't like in the investment industry. But one of the things that I like about the guaranteed income stream out of an annuity is it provides you with the ability to pay those necessary living expenses, which keeps your mind off your stock portfolio. You're not worrying about the ups and downs of the stock
Right.
market if you can pay the bills. So there's a huge benefit to looking at that. And let me just remind everybody, the federal government, a FERS employee, they call their pension their FERS annuity. That's what they say, the A word, and they're not afraid of it.
I know.
Why? Because it's giving them guaranteed income.
Right.
And they pay part of their salary, working during their working years to have that income in retirement.
And whenever we hear somebody has a pension, we're like, that is awesome. God, you're so lucky.
Yeah, if I ran into you in Huntsville, if I ran into anybody in Huntsville and I said, would you like a pension? Oh, yes, I'll take a pension. Would you like an annuity? No, I don't want an annuity. I don't like annuities. They're cousins.
Yes.
They behave the same way.
Right.
They provide guaranteed income.
Right, exactly.
Understand what you're looking, when you sit down with somebody, understand what an annuity does for you, how it impacts your plan before you form the opinion that you don't like something.
Exactly. And how, if or when, or, how could it work for you? It's a possibility. It's a tool again.
It's a tool.
It's a tool. So thank you again so much for all of your input. We love hearing your answers. And if you want to know ways to generate lifetime income, reduce that tax bill, and maintain your current lifestyle in retirement, reach out now to start planning your ideal retirement. For Chris Wallace of WG Financial Group, I'm Lou Ann Fulmer, and we hope you have a great day and an even better retirement.
This program was sponsored by WG Financial Group, where your retirement matters.